2013 was a bit of a disappointing season for Bears fans such as myself. I will say, however, that I don't think it was all of that surprising. Now, sure, maybe it was surprising to see a Bears offense finish second in points scored and see a historically bad Bears defense. At the end of the day, the Bears are still a mediocre football team, and their 8-8 record bears that out, improves that. And I talked about it before the 2013 season that this team needed to scrap its defensive scheme and go in a different direction because that defense that they think is a championship level defense is not. And if they go down this route in 2013, it will result in some very disastrous consequences. It did. Score one yet again when it comes to the Bears for me, the Schleg Day. No question about it. So coming into this year's draft, coming into this offseason before the draft, you knew that the defense was going to be the primary centerpiece of what general manager, Phil Emery and head coach Mark Trestman set out to do. They needed to improve this defense. That doesn't mean that the offense is perfect, and I think anybody that thinks that offense is perfect is freaking fooling themselves. I also still will stand by what I said before, that it was completely ridiculous for the Bears to give Jay Cutler Aaron Rodgers type money over the next 3 years to a guy who consistently cannot beat Aaron fucking Rodgers. Look at Jay Cutler's career record against Green Bay. Look at his career record against Aaron Rodgers. And they gave this guy elite money. Big-time franchise quarterback, elite quarterback money. Now, maybe they did that because as an organization, they felt they had to stem the tide and kind of stay the course with another regime's quarterback, mind you, by the way, another general manager, another head coach's quarterback, because they knew the defense was in such disrepair after so many years of bad draft choices and free agent signings that were at the end of their usefulness, namely Julius Peppers. And you knew you were going to have guys depart maybe via free agency like Corey Wooten and Henry Melton, and they did just that. So the Bears knew that maybe they had to deal with it on offense and come here and rebuild this pathetically, historically bad Bears defense. Again, the defense was a primary problem in 2013, but let me assure you again, the offense was far from perfect. And if you are a Bears fan and you try to tell me that the offense, and in particular Jay Cutler and anything involved with that offense in no way shares any responsibility in an 8-8 season, you're clueless. You are a moron. They win 8-8. They earned that as a team. Let's keep that in perspective. So when it came to the 2014 NFL draft, they had signed people in free agency like Jared Allen, the big kind of surprising free agent acquisition. They signed guys like Lamar Houston and Willie Young. And as a result, they re-signed Tim Jennings long-term. They re-signed Peanut Tillman for a year. You knew that even with that being done, they were still going to devote a lot of attention and a lot of focus on the defensive side of the ball in the 2014 NFL draft. I don't think anybody was caught off guard by that. I don't think anybody was surprised by that because, frankly, I think most people probably assumed the Bears yet another year were going to devote at least two of their first three picks, to the defensive side of the ball, if not their first three picks all to the defensive side of the ball. Part of my problem with this philosophy is that it can lead you to tend to want to reach for need as opposed to going for the superior player at maybe a position that doesn't seem to be quite as glaring of a need. And my other problem with this is in part because since 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, the past 5 drafts the Bears have had, they have devoted 2 of their first 3 picks on the defensive side of the football. And yet here we go again in 2014, and they have to do it yet again. Does that strike you as maybe something that is a bit of a problem? That explains why the defense got so historically bad. You miss on these defensive picks. You miss on the Shane McClellans and the Brandon Hardens and and those type of guys, so on and so forth. You miss on those guys, the Jerron Gilberts, the Major Wrights, the Chris Contes, not only have you devoted a lot of time, effort, energy, resources, and draft picks to it, that side of the ball, you haven't gotten any better, and you're right back in the same damn position, toiling in that same cycle of mediocrity. So the Bears chose to say, screw it, we are going to address the defensive side of the ball early and often in this 2014 NFL draft. 4 of their first 5 picks came on the defensive side of the ball. If you look at the draft results down below, I will say this. When it comes to this draft for the Chicago Bears, this is easily my favorite of Emery's 3 drafts. This is easily my favorite Bears draft since probably 2008. I feel like they did a good combination of getting some really good players of need, but also really good players in terms of maybe examples of best players available or close to it on the board. This is the first year that maybe with one real notable exception, it actually seemed like the Bears actually understood how to structure their big board, how to structure their draft board, and how to go through the draft process. I really liked what the Bears and Phil Emery did here. The reason I maybe didn't call him one of my 5 big draft winners is in part A, because of the ridiculousness of that second round pick, and B, is because maybe I didn't want to seem like too much of a homer. But I like a lot of what the Bears did in this draft. Their best pick was Kyle Fuller. I had said something on a mock draft a couple days before the 2014 NFL draft that I thought Kyle Fuller was ultimately going to be the guy. I've heard some Bears fans, a lot of Bears fans that I know, question this pick and knock this pick. And I will sit there and tell you this. There are very few Bears first-round picks over the past 20-plus years that I've actually been pleased with or excited about. Generally, when I'm excited and anticipating good things out of a Bears first-round draft pick, in general, you could take it to the bank that that guy is going to pan out. That's been the history. The first-round picks of the Bears that I've actually been happy with, guys that actually pushed them to draft each time, believe it or not, Brian Urlacher in 2000, Tommy Harris in 2004, Greg Olsen in 2007. I would come here to 2014. Sure, I would have loved to have had Aaron Donald, but now as I sit back a little removed from the process, I realize that maybe they weren't going to be able to trade up a few slots to be able to go get him. And the St. Louis Rams happened to take him 1 pick before. So one of the best players on the board in a big-time position of need was Kyle Fuller out of Virginia Tech. I love his all-around skill set. I love his ability to defend outside wide receivers, his ability to kick in the slot, maybe the versatility to play safety. I now know a lot of Bears fans are talking about that they thought a safety should have been taken here at number 14, or as always, oh, my team should trade down a few picks to take this guy. It doesn't always work like that. And I will say this, is I think 14 was too rich for both Pryor and Clinton Dix. I think Fuller was a little bit of a better player than both of those guys. And in today's NFL, with all the 3-4 wide receiver sets that teams run and the use of the tight end, you need a lot of times a bigger slot corner. You're starting 3 cornerbacks 50-60% of the damn time. So Kyle Fuller could come in and be a starter as a rookie and be a damn good one and eventually be Peanuts' long-term replacement outside at corner. I thought it was a great selection. In terms of values, they got a couple of really good values in this draft. Will Sutton, the defensive tackle for Arizona State. I was hoping and campaigning for them to draft him in round number 2, and instead they were able to get him in round number 3, that kind of prototype 3-technique defensive tackle, especially once he drops his weight and plays around 295 or 300 pounds. I thought that was great value. A productive college player who has potentially first-round pick type upside. To get a guy like that in the 3rd round, for all the years that the Bears missed on players in rounds 1 and rounds 2, some of the things they did well over the year were picking guys later on in the draft, in the 3rd round or 4th round guys, going back to Roosevelt Colvin, and before that, Olin Kreutz and Tony Parrish. I mean, he was a 2nd round pick, but you get the idea, especially all the missed 1st round picks. The guys like the Marty Bookers of the world, like I said, Warwick Holdman, Roosevelt Colvin. I could go on and on and on. Lance Briggs was a 3rd round pick. Matt Forte was a 2nd round pick. Again, getting a guy like Will Sutton here in round number 3 kind of reminds me of what they got a few years ago out of Henry Melton, who was a 4th round pick. Tremendous value. And I love the pick of David Fales in round number 6, the quarterback out of San Jose State. I'm not the only one that was very high on this guy and had him as a top 5 quarterback in this 2014 NFL draft class. Apparently, Jim Harbaugh did too. So that makes me feel a little bit better in my processes and in my quarterback evaluations that a guy that knows the quarterback position like Jim Harbaugh felt that David Fales was a top 5 quarterback in this class. And I think Fales is a perfect fit in this system. long term. Now, is he even going to make the roster as a rookie? Will he end up on the practice squad? Perhaps. Would I rather have him as a backup over a Jordan Palmer? Absolutely. But is he the guy similar to maybe a Josh McCown that really fits that Mark Trestman system very well? Absolutely. I thought a really good value there in round 6. A guy that could surprise. The safety out of Minnesota, Brock Vereen, the brother of Shane Vereen, who plays for the New England Patriots. The Bears traded up late into round 4 to get him. They needed a safety, and this is a guy that could play safety and maybe even play some nickel-dime corner as well. I love his athleticism. I love his explosiveness. A really solid player that impressed me the more that I watched him. Again, the guy that could surprise and could be a starter on that Bears defense sometime during his rookie season. If I had to second-guess some things, there's a couple of things I'd second-guess. Waiting until round 6 to take a quarterback, but again, that was kind of to be expected. I will always say that as long as they continue to trot out Jay Cutler as their starting quarterback, to be fair. But I'm glad they did address it, and I love the pick of David Fales. Kind of blows in the logic of what Trestman said about taking a quarterback after round 3 makes no sense. Now, maybe you had a second or third round grade on him, which is what I had on David Fales, but it is what it is. I was really disappointed the Bears in this deep and talented, loaded wide receiver class in particular, and the type of wide receiver the Bears needed, with guys like Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey, and sure, Bears fans are idiots. They're going to throw out like Marcus Wilson. Okay, those are your 3 big guys. Where is that short, small, quick twitch type of slot guy, that Randall Cobb type of guy? The Bears don't have it, period. Where's that guy that can make a big impact in the return game? They don't have it. And for me, I was really surprised that they did not address this at any point in time in the 2014 NFL Draft. I feel like it's something that their special teams lacks, and in particular, their offense lacks. If you could take away one of those guys on the outside, you might say, well, you still got a Jeffrey and a Bennett. At some point in time, you need that Randall Cobb type of slot weapon, and the Bears seem to not comprehend or understand this. It's frustrating. I was a little surprised they didn't spend at least one pick on a linebacker. Kasim Green didn't do much as a rookie. Jonathan Bostic, they're already talking about moving him to weak side. They're talking about Shea McClellan getting a shot at strong side linebacker. They got all types of issues, short-term and long-term, at the linebacker position. I was surprised they didn't address it, but I could understand. It wasn't the greatest linebacker class for the type of scheme the Bears run. The biggest knock to me is Ego Ferguson in round number 2. You're basically taking him as a Stephen Paye type of nose tackle. This was dumb. This was stupid. Why would you take Ferguson? You're going to tell me that Ego Ferguson was at no worse than the 51st best player on the board in the 2014 NFL Draft, according to the Chicago Bears. With all the other good things that Phil Emery did in this draft, you took a defensive tackle in round number 2 that had 1 sack in 2013 that I frankly question whether he was even the best defensive tackle on that LSU team last year. That might have been Anthony Johnson. In round number 2, if they'd have taken Sutton in round number 2 and Ferguson in round 3, I probably would have been a little bit happier with it and okay with that. I've been like, reaching in the 3rd round is not as bad as reaching in round 2. I don't see what they got such a hard-on with Ego Ferguson. I thought it was a ridiculous pick, and I get a sense that he'll end up being a mediocre player, if not a flat-out bust. I hope I'm wrong, but I doubt it. As far as my final grade for the Bears, I actually gave them a very solid B. Like I said, by far to me, this is the best of the 3 drafts that Phil Emery has run and taken part in. Fuller was a great fit, good value. Yes, I'm sad that there was no Aaron Donald there, but when I look at the board and how it shook out, it was perfectly fine to me for the Bears to take Kyle Fuller at number 14. And again, I'm going to emphasize, if Peanut gets hurt, then Fuller's starting on the outside. If Jennings gets hurt, Fuller's starting on the outside. If both of those guys stay healthy all year. What is so wrong with having 3 fucking corners when you play nickel dime packages 60% of the time in the NFL? You stupid fucking Bear fans. Jesus Christ. Frustrates me so goddamn much. Same people that think Jay Cutler is an elite franchise quarterback. I think Sutton could really be a mid-round steal here. I like the Carey pick for what the Bears were looking for out of the running back position. I had another running back or 2 higher on my board, but Carey was a really good fit again for what the Bears do. And sometimes that's more important. To get him right there at round number 4, your Michael Bush replacement with better hands, I loved it. They really addressed a lot of needs. One concern I do have, again, is quarterback. Ultimately, this organization and some of their fans apparently feel that Jay Cutler is a franchise NFL quarterback. Again, I'm going to emphasize, he's not. I've done videos about why this is a fallacy. And at the end of the day, will the Bears truly regret passing up on Johnny Manziel or Teddy Bridgewater? Because if one or both of them develops into a franchise quarterback, you damn right they're going to regret it long-term for their organization. Why in the fuck did you feel the need to take Ego Ferguson in round number 2? It was like Phil Emery couldn't help himself. He out-sleuthed himself. He said, oh my God, I love this guy so much. He gives me such a Woody. I can't risk trading down. I got to take him, and I got to take him now. I can't wait for him in round number 3, even though he was probably going to be there. Ugh, such a stupid pick. And I still, again, question why no slot receiver, no returner. That surprises me. That is a bigger need than a lot of Bears fans and apparently people in the Bears organization deem it to be. At the end of the day, the biggest focus for the Bears in this 2014 NFL draft was to have a good draft and get a lot better on the defensive side of the ball. Did they do that? They got better on the defensive side of the ball. They have probably taken a historically bad Bears defense and between their free agency and draft moves have taken that horrible, historically bad Bears defense and made it at least maybe mediocre, which may be enough for the Bears that their offense does well again in 2014, puts up a lot of points, gains a lot of yards. It might be enough to sneak them into the playoffs. So if that's what Phil Emery wanted to accomplish here with the 2014 NFL draft, I think he did a good job of doing just that, frankly.